Hello and welcome to another video. In today's video, we are hoping to make big progress towards finishing the Wheelhorse Raider 9. Now, to start off today, I'm going to do something which we usually do at the end of the videos, but we haven't actually done in a while, which is update our to-do list board on the whiteboard. Because we haven't actually done this in quite a while. So, checking the rear wheel tyre pressure, we have done this now. Reason it was on there was because we thought that there was a puncture with the rear tyre, but there isn't. Now, in the last video, we did throttle and choke cables, wiring and engine, which was quite a lot of progress ticked off. And I can't remember if it was in the last video or not, but we also did the parking brake, which we've done so many videos on this tractor now, I can't fully remember what we did in each of them, which leaves 4 jobs remaining, which is the lights, which we said we would do right at the very end, footrests, and the repairs to the seat frame and the seat back. Along with the jobs we just showed you on the list, we also need to reassemble the entire tractor, which will add a bit of time to that. But another thing we've done additionally that isn't on the list is the old drive belt had assumed a shape it was sitting in for many years, going from the engine back to the axle, and it stretched quite a bit, so we bought a new one. So I'll just use the old one to make sure the cameraman's awake.
Oi!
Anyway, we have a new belt, and we've already put the drive pulley back on the engine on this end, so I'll just put this round here. Also put the handbrake on off camera so that the tension is down and it's easier to put this belt on. There we go. Which I'll just go release the handbrake, and you should see the tensioner come up a bit. There you go. And that is well tensioned. And to make sure that we've actually adjusted the handbrake correctly, so that when that goes forward, it has actually disengaged drive. We can't actually test that until we've put the belt cover on, because that acts as a tensioner, which kind of holds both sides of the belt here, which means that it pushes, instead of pushing or going like that, when the tensioner releases, the belt goes forwards, taking it off the pulley and disengaging drive. So we will now put that on. Now onto the belt guard, and I hope you can see what I mean by it pinching the belt on this end. We'll now put this on so you'll be able to see what it looks like as we put it on. I've got 3 bolt holes to line up, so a few different places to look at. But there's bolt here at the back, which I will just quickly put on. There's also that bolt there, which I believe is also used to put the foot pegs on with. And then you've got the bolt at the front here, which you also put the earth strap to the battery to. We've now tested the belt tensioning at this end by pushing the clutch pedal down. You can see there's plenty of slack on that, and that doesn't engage when you turn the engine. So that is fine. So we're going to move on to the next part, which is putting back on the deck clutch engagement mechanisms here, which we're not necessarily thinking of using a deck on this tractor again, but we're not fully sure where we put these so that we don't lose them if we don't do that. So we're going to put them back on anyway. You can always take them off at a later date. So first to go on is this sleeve, which appears to be quite tight on there, so just giving it a gentle tap with the high hammer until it goes on. We just leave it there. Then the next part is this clutch plate, which goes over that. Slip back here. And then we'll go into the bolt holes on the pulley. We've now fixed this first clutch plate on here, which it has these tabs, which you have to fix into the slot in this piece that we put on first, and that's to hold that in place. And then onto that goes the second clutch plate. You can see the needle bearing on the bearing in there, which we put some light oil on there, so that should help hopefully just slide on like so, which obviously to engage and disengage this PTO, that would be moved forward and backwards by the lever that is operated by the driver. And there are two brackets that hold on the lever. First one is this one, which mounts about there, and the other one mounts up here, like that. Now the lever is actually the only thing holding this clutch plate on as well on this shaft, but what we'll do is fix these two brackets on and come back to you. We have the two brackets on now. It's time to put the lever on, which has to go through the bracket and then down there. Like that. And we just get the R-clip, and I will need to try to line this up, which could be a bit difficult. And then that is done. Next thing to go on are the footrests, which we've cleaned these up, but you can still see this bit doesn't look very good, and we'll need to do something about that, but we're going to do something about that while it's mounted to the tractor. So to put these on, you can see there's this clip here which goes around the bit of bar sticking out from the chassis there. And you then slide that up to here, and I need to line these back bolts up so that that goes on there, and I'll need to put the nuts on there and on these two and get them properly lined up, and then it's the same process on the other side. We've now put the footrest on this side as well, and the next thing we're going to do is put the rear wheels back on, which they're down here at the moment. We have cleaned up the rims, and they look as good as they could get, seeing as someone in the past seems to have repainted them, but there's nothing mechanically wrong with them, so that's fine. So we're going to be putting them back on, then we'll take the axle stands out, have a bit of a clear up, and we'll come back to you. Rear wheels are fitted now, axle stands are out, so it's standing on its own 4 feet, and while we were having a clear up, we found the fuel tank bracket, which we still need to fit on there, which we will do in a bit. However, what we're now going to look at is the rear fender, and more specifically the light on the back, which obviously wasn't working and was missing the cover. So we bought a replacement from America, and if we get it out of here, we can have a look. As you can see, it's pretty much the same as the old one, and we've already taken or undone the screws to get this out, so I'll just take this out. Obviously we'll need a bit of a clean up behind here, and then we will need to put one of these connectors onto the wires on here, and then that can be fitted. We've now cleaned up this area on the fender, and you can see where the paint's gone from a lighter red and faded to a darker red over time. which we've now taken the cover, the lens cover, off of this new light, which you need to do to get the bolts in, which we're putting new bolts on to mount on there. So we will get this mounted onto the fender. We have the new rear light fitted now. So now it's time to put the rear fender back on the tractor, which might take some lining up, so I will get my cameraman to help me line up the holes on the rear fender with the holes on the rear axle, and then we will update you once it's on. With the rear fender remounted here, the tractor is starting to take shape a bit. Now moving on to the seat base, which we've got here, which you can see is painted. We welded up the cracked bits there, fixed some of the stress cracks. There was a couple of dents that we made flat again, and as you can see, we've painted it, and the bit that you'll see when it's on the tractor, which is mainly this area, looks very good. Now if I turn it over so you can see the inside, you can see there's a lot of rust pitting, which we basically just cleaned up all the rust and then painted over it, since this won't be seen. And a bit of a nice surprise for you, we've gotten our seat panels back from being reupholstered, and they look very good. So they will fit like that, covers up all the pitting, which is perfect. So what we'll now do is mount these, and then we can get it mounted to the rear fender. We've now fitted up the seat, and it looks good. Very good actually. And another thing that we want to test is the rear light. So ignition on and the light switch, and boom, there you go. That's another success. And this video has been quite a few quick successes in a row. The next thing on the list is the hood, and we've got a few dents we'd like to sort out. There's one there, and the biggest one up here on the top. And while this dent happened, it also cracked the front headlight lens was cracked, so that will be being replaced by this replacement one we've got here, which you can see there. It's not quite the same in terms of design, but it still looks pretty cool. So what we're going to do is take the light lens and the light cluster off, so that we can get this dent to push it out, and then we'll do the other ones as well. Which, how these are held onto the bonnet, it seems that you undo these 4 screws and both sides come out, both the lens and the actual light cluster behind. So I have to make sure I don't accidentally drop the light cluster, because that wouldn't be too good. Turns out we were wrong. Although the screws do go into this light panel, it's actually 2 rivets that hold it on properly as well. So we've just got to drill them out, and then that should come off. Now, before I do the other side one, I'll get the cameraman to hold the light panel so that it doesn't fall. So we'll come back to you once that's off. Bit of a confession here, we have skipped ahead a bit because we're slightly running out of time. So what we did once we took the light panel off was we cleaned it up, put a lick of white paint on it, and left that to dry. You can see the new paint on there. While we were waiting for it to dry, we cleaned up all inside the hood, and also had a go at the dents, which the one up here was very difficult because it's a double skinned panel. You've got this layer of metal and this one to get the dent out of, but that was actually quite successful. We weren't quite as successful with the ones here at the bottom, because we didn't want to damage the paint or anything. And if we want to try and do a bit more, then they're fairly accessible when it's back on the tractor anyway. Now, this panel finished drying quite recently, and we put new rivets in, riveted it on there. And that is all on. Now, we just need to slip the lights back in, and then we can put the new lens on. Now just doing up the screws on the new lens. Then after this, the hood is pretty much done, I believe. We have the new lens on now, and it is looking good. So the only thing left to do is pick this up, take it over here, and put it back on the tractor, which I will be getting my cameraman to help me with, because lining up this bottom bit is going to be quite difficult. And then once I've got it lined up, I need someone to put the pin in. So we'll see you in a second once we've done that. We have touched down now, the tractor is off the ramps, and the hood is back on. Now to test the lights. I assume by the fact that the workshop in front of me was lit up that they worked, which that means that this entire project, except for the footrests, which we need to deal with, but we'll do that at a later date, is done. Now normally at this point we would go for a test drive on it. However, we're not going to do that today because the weather outside isn't very nice, and this video is already very long as it is, and we don't want to be rushing it and cramping it into the end of the video. Which, thank you very much for staying for all of this video. I assume you have if you're at this point, and for this entire project, because it has been our longest so far. But other than the footrest, that is it for this video, and that is it for this project. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.